welcome to another episode of Design Under Influence. We're here from Arc IT. Our job is to help architects manage, wrestle down technology, and actually use it so they can focus on their best work and not fiddling with tech. And that's kind of where our mission is, what we do. And today we're going to unpack some things regarding remote work. But before we go there, I'm going to say Happy New Year. This is the first podcast. I have three great engineers here with me today. Understand, like, they're taking their time to help us kind of really understand this better, to help you as an architecture company leader or someone who cares about their company and how to make things better, more efficient, more effective. That's what they're all about. So Harry, Henrik, and Zahin, say hello to the people and we'll launch right into it.
Hello.
Here. All right. So those are not paid actors. Those are real people. Despite of how good they look and all that. So today, let's get into this. Is so the way we do these shows is we talk about the most prevalent tickets that we get. And by tickets, I mean requests from our customers who are architects for particular IT specific support. And then we try to kind of help the rest of the community by sharing what some of our advice was, and then was it successful or not? And if it is, perhaps you can apply it to your own case. So today we're talking about remote work. Specifically how we help enable remote work, or how your IT company or yourself, if you're pretty techie, can enable remote work in your architecture firm. Now, remote is a thing. You probably already have ways you're doing this with some employees, or maybe you're fully distributed and everybody else, or maybe you're still in the office. But if you want to come up with better ways, more economical, more effective, less troublesome, and more scalable, that's what we're here to unpack for you today. So Harry tells me, and Henrik tells me, and Zahin tells me there's two main ways. There's more than two, but we're going to cover two main ways to pipe in to the org and be able to work remotely. And those are VPN and remote desktop. Harry, do I have it right?
Yes. Those are the two main ways that most of our clients use for remote access.
So, and we support it, we set it up for them. So let's talk VPN. Now, please make sure, just don't get too engineering on us as far as your nomenclature. So keep it at the layman level, please, because that's where I am, and that's where a lot of our viewers are. We run businesses. We need help from IT. You guys are the talent, but please speak to us in our language. Talk to us VPN, and maybe each take a turn a little bit and tell us what the VPN advantages, what it is, and advantages and disadvantages, and how to set it up, and maybe potential problems with it.
Oh, Henry, go ahead.
Don't all talk at once.
All right. So I'll just describe a generic office, right? So if your office has a bunch of engineering workstations, design workstations, architecture workstations, and has a server with some data on it, and your office has enough seats for 5, 10, 15 people to sit in the office all day and get their work done, and your files live there, then the kind of solution you've probably heard about is VPN. And all that really means is that there's a way for you from home, from anywhere in the world, to connect to your office in some way that's hopefully safe and secure and get access to all those computing resources, but not only the computing resources, but the files. And so in a scenario like that, what you're doing is you're at home on a laptop, and maybe your laptop doesn't have the engineering applications on it. Maybe it does. That can be worked out later. You connect via the VPN, you use a login. Hopefully you're also using MFA. And now you are magically connected to your work network. And either you're doing one of two things at that point, either connecting to your design workstation, kind of working off of it remotely, or you're just accessing and opening up the files that are on the servers at work. There's other use cases, but that's one. Everything lives at work. You're not at work. You connect securely to work. That's called the VPN connection. There you go.
So what some of the ways, so are there different companies that provide this VPN service? What some of the more common ones, Harry or Zahin, we're going with, we're advising clients, we're supporting? What some of the things, maybe some of the ones that have more trouble than the others?
For our company, most of our VPN, well, I don't want to get too technical, but we tend to use the Meraki access point just because of how secure it is to provide that VPN technology for most of our clients. We do have clients that have different firewalls to facilitate that communication, but I would probably say for 90% of our client base, we tend to go with the Meraki firewalls.
Well, 90%. That's pretty definitive, guys. So Meraki firewalls is one takeaway. Do you see any bandwidth issues? What's some of the so when you're setting this first of all, let's just step back. Let's say I don't have anything right now, and I'd like to hire my first remote hire, or my office downsizing. I'm gonna have 3 people, 3 of my architects go remote. What am I gonna think about? How am I approaching this decision? Like, okay, I'm VPN Meraki, but how does that all work?
Well, it's a versus topic, right? The other option is also just using the remote desktop. And again, it's similar to the VPN in the fact that you are remoting from an outside network into your office network. The protocol is different, the authentication mechanism is different. But again, it depends on what your use case is. Just to elaborate more on what Eric was talking about, if all your applications and data are on the office network, okay, then you can VPN in. If you have the applications installed in your computer, but then the data is also on your office network, there's also a different reason for that. I mean, the first scenario, if all your applications and your data was on the office network, it's preferable that you remote desktop into your network, because then you can remote into your office computer and access your applications. If your applications are installed on your mobile device, for say your laptop, and all you need is the data that's on the office on the remote network, it's probably better for you to use a VPN and easily access your data and run your applications on, say, a more powerful laptop. So it depends on your use case, and that would probably depend on whether you're going with a VPN or remote desktop technology.
That's a very, very good bifurcation. I like this. So let me repeat what I heard, and you tell me if I heard it right. So the simple rule of thumb, and this is not applying for everybody, I'm sure, but simple rule of thumb: if my applications, we're talking BIM and CAD stuff, right?
Correct. Architectural programs.
If they're installed on my laptop and my laptop is running them, then maybe all I need is remote desktop, because I want to access designs, notes, data, meeting minutes, whatever, from my office. But I don't
probably VPN in that case. So you probably just need a VPN just to get the data in order to run the applications that are already installed on your physical device. If the applications, to say you have a less powerful laptop, you're running very high memory intensive architectural diagrams, you have a very powerful desktop at the office that's running those programs. In that case, you probably want to use the remote desktop technology, where you can remote into that desktop and work off that desktop.
I got you. So I got to reverse, but I essentially understood you correctly. So if my application is running on a powerful laptop, all I need is VPN to get the designs and other things and collaborate. Mm-hmm. But if the machine, the more expensive, the real powerful machine that I already invested in, sits in my office, then I need probably a remote desktop, right? To operate it.
Recommended, as we would recommend you to go with.
All right. Well, so that's pretty good. Now, Zahin, tell me, you've been a little quiet there, but like, have you seen what potential issues, problems, concerns have you seen with the actual rollout? Let's go before we go into support aspect of it and what some of the things to be aware of on a ongoing basis during the implementation. What have you seen? Some hiccups, some things people need to kind of like clean up right now to help them have a cleaner implementation of VPN or remote desktop?
Mm-hmm. So one of the more important things I would say is having a static IP I think that's really important if, regardless of whether you're going with a VPN route or a remote, desktop server route, you really need that static IP because one of the issues that we've seen with a specific client who decided not to go with static IP, that so they have a dynamic IP range. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit too technical.
No. Go. This is interesting.
Yeah, but the static IP makes it so that your IP addresses assigned to certain network equipment that you have won't change. And so what that means is when you set it manually, then you set it to a specific IP address and it just works. But if you don't have that static IP set up, if you do have the dynamic IP range that is default from these ISP companies, they just give you, dynamic IP. Then that IP address that you set in manually will eventually change, whether it be a few weeks, a few months. It's going to change and everything's going to break. So at that point, when everything does break, you'll just have to go hunt down the IP address that changed. Go back to the setting where you manually input it, change it again. We've seen it a few times, and it's I feel like that is a very solvable issue. I mean, it does cost a little bit of money. You do need to talk to your ISP service and purchase the static IP, but that is one of the most common issues that we do see. Just a preventative measure.
Man, that's gold. If anybody's listening or watching or reading, and this is one thing you take away, I mean, that's just so simple comparatively to the kind of to the problems, to the amount of problems down the line where you have to get everybody involved, stop work, and figure out what's going on. That is a really good little advice. I appreciate that, Henrik. What can you add to this conversation? That again, we're talking implementation initially.
Sure. So just to say, there's a couple different ways. Before Zaheen clarified at the end that he was really talking about how is your business connected to the internet, because that's really the context he was talking about. It wasn't clear to me at the beginning that he might also be talking about like what's your home internet connection like. And so I think what Zaheen's saying, and I want him to correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's important to have a static IP connection for your business. Make sure you have enough bandwidth. Some clients, when we first meet them, have such a small office, they've gone with sort of like a home style internet connection that's lower in cost. And that's probably where the first problem is going to happen. There should be no problem at all with having a lower cost home style connection for your home, where your laptop is, where you're trying to get your work done. Am I right about that, Zaheen?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead and get a standard residential grade connection for home, but for your business, you want to upgrade to that business class connection that has that static IP. I think that's really the nutshell of what Zaheen was going after there. For some of the techies that might have been listening, you might have been thinking about, well, he's talking about how the network is set up inside the office. Like, nope, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about how's your business connected to the internet.
Any other advice on the implementation on a beforehand, before you plug it all in and tell your employees to jump and start using it? Anything else, Harry or Henrik, that you guys would advise to consider?
I know there's one thing that these guys have run into before, and that is if you're trying to connect to that desktop and getting work done, it's powered off in the evening once you've got home. So how have you guys solved that for folks?
Well, in our case, we've had we have an in-house solution where we change the power settings on the workstation. We have a custom power settings that we apply to, well, for our clients who use remote desktop, we know that it's paramount, it's mandatory for their workstations to be online when they leave the office, when they're working from home. So we have custom power settings that we apply to those workstations just to make sure that they are always online. Now, there are scenarios where they could have a power outage, someone could just trip a line, the device could go offline. There are scenarios where that goes offline, but for most of our cases, the custom power settings keeps those devices online and make sure that they're always available for our clients to connect to.
And I think making that configuration change is probably a standard part of our assessment process, right? You come to us, you ask us to help you with this, and making sure you have a good business connection to your ISP and making sure that the power settings are appropriate, kind of the problems we've run into so many times that we proactively just make sure that stuff gets done before as a part of the implementation.
One of the first things we do, yeah.
Correct. And another thing too that we also consider as part of our implementation is security, which is paramount, which Enrique touched on earlier. So we try to make sure that whoever is connecting to the device has some form of two-factor authentication, whether it's through, it could also just be single sign-on. Maybe it's SSO to another application that they use, a more secure application, or it's a two-factor authentication. So one way or the other, we always try to make sure that there is another level of security. They don't just have to put in an email and a password. There's also a second layer before they're able to access a secure network and data.
And we've
just
done,
made a little.
sorry to interrupt, Henrik, but keep pin that thought. We have done a pretty significant topic coverage on 2FA versus SSO, Harry.
Yeah.
And so if you're watching and listening and reading, you can refer back, I think maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago. It was fairly recent. We'll link it out in the notes in the article itself. But if you're watching, go back a couple episodes, and it's 2FA, two-factor authentication, SSO. We've done a pretty decent job punching that topic into submission. Go ahead, Henrik.
Oh, I was just going to say he made the little security guy in my heart smile by bringing that topic up.
Yeah. So your whole domain is security, right? Is it, or is it?
Yeah, it's one of my areas of specialization for Arc IT. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So all right. So we touched it on implementation. I think let's just flow through. Let's say we did implement, or a client or architecture firm implements the system. It's either remote or VPN, whatever fits their needs. Now let's talk about support and some of the issues that you guys keep dealing with and getting tickets that may, some of the things that may help prevent those issues. Let's do 2 or 3 and we can wrap up. We don't need to cloud people with all this, but give me a few.
Zahin, you can go ahead and take this one.
A few issues. Well, definitely the first one. Well, I think we've touched on the major issues that we've run into already. First one being the IP address changing. And the second one being the computers turning off. Those are 2 things that we see really often. But other than that, I can't really think of too.
Well, so let's say this. This is, if there are no real problems, let's not make them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think from what I would say from my end is something else. I don't think it's a problem. It's more of a security feature, but cannot be something that users have to be aware of, as passwords do expire. So we get requests for, I can't log into my VPN, I can't log into my remote desktop. Most of the time, it's just an expired password, which is a security implementation. We have expirations for these passwords for a reason. And another scenario, more of an advanced scenario that I've also seen is it's kind of out of the user's control, is just your ISP changes its route. So you're working in the morning, you're able to reach your network resources. For some reason, in the afternoon, you're no longer able to reach your network resources. So it's not within your control. It's just, for some reason, your internet service provider has changed the route, and now your VPN or your remote desktop connection is no longer working. Now that requires a bit of troubleshooting, technical expertise, which is where your IT department comes in. But yeah, except password change and that happening, I don't see much of an issue with remote desktop, remote access.
Oh, I would throw out there that there's also workarounds, and I guess I would ask the team, how often has Arc IT helped clients implement a workaround? Again, maybe you have an outage from your ISP. I've had outages from my ISP once or twice a year for 4 hours at a time. What do you do in that case? Personally, I tether to my phone, right? Wi-Fi connect my laptop to my phone, and I connect to work. My expectation at that point, as a person not using design applications, is it's not going to be a great experience. Have you guys helped anybody make that tethering connection? What's it like at that point?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's not really something that we see too often. Generally, if an ISP has an outage, we kind of we're all hands on deck with working with the ISP on getting this resolved, as opposed to really finding workarounds. Because I mean, the idea is that if there's no network at the office, that means they can't access server files. They can't work off, like cloud applications, and it's just it just gets a little messy there. So they'll have internet access to go web browse, and even if they have their files hosted on a cloud service, that's great. Then they would be able to access it. But for the most part, a lot of those files are hosted on the internal network, so they just don't have access.
Yeah, from my own experience, workarounds that we've offered would be one, mobile deck hotspots, because when I get those calls or those tickets about troubleshooting an issue where VPN is no longer working, remote desktop connection is no longer working. If I'm trying to run a trace route to see where the drop is happening, if I find out that it's happening on the main network, an alternate option could be, can you connect your device to the mobile hotspot? That is an alternate network that's almost readily, immediately available to the client. If for some reason you're not able to do that, another option could be, is there a nearby coffee shop next to you? Just walk into and just help us test this out. So there's always options that we try to give our clients and have them work and make sure they're able to get back to work.
I appreciate you guys' input on this. I think this has been helpful. We'll let our viewers decide that, but I want to finish out by talking about security a little bit. And Henrik, you have a lot of experience in this field. This is sort of, this is sort of your baby. What's some of the security weaknesses? And we don't need to go too deep on this, but some of the things you recommend architecture firms who are moving remote to think about from a security standpoint, security weaknesses on remote setups.
Yeah, I think the 2 or 3 highly related projects that ArcIT takes on most frequently are to make sure that there's some form of multi-factor authentication. All of us are familiar with getting that little text code or looking on an app on our phone and confirming via some rotating code and typing that in. Your VPN connection or your remote desktop connection really ought to be secured by more than just your username and your password. That third piece of info, that rotating code or whatever it is, really needs to be in place. If it's not, that's pretty significant risk. We emphasize putting that in place before the second item. The second item I'd put on that list is making sure that your password is reasonably strong. We've all heard the jokes about my password's password, or it's password 123, or it's the name of my cat and it's posted on Facebook, right? Hopefully we're all past that point. But even password managers like LastPass are saying, no matter what, your password's got to be 12 characters long starting tomorrow. That's a real thing, just so you know, in the news right now. LastPass is forcing that for their master passwords. Just making sure it's long enough, complex enough. And if you have to decide between, let's say, a 20-character password that's kind of simple, meaning it's a bunch of really simple words stuck together, and a 12-character password that's really complicated, here's a sneak preview of the advice. Go with the longer password that's kind of simple.
Okay, good points. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. You got to go back to what you do best, which is helping clients. And hopefully, we truly hope this was helpful. I mean, let us know what your thoughts are. You can always reach out to us at getarchit.com. And look, if you are architecture, design, and engineering firm and you need help with your IT, we're here. Harry's here, Henrik's here, Zahin is here. We have a lot of other engineers. Hopefully we'll be able to invite them on the show so you can meet them. But we got talent. We got passionate people, and we're here to help. And if nothing else, if just the info helps you out, we're happy with that as well. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Harry, Henrik, Zahin, appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Yep.
Take care, folks.
We'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching.